Alright, so what this is going to be is this is not going to be a breakdown usually like Michael does. What this is going to be is basically me explaining what exactly is going through my head, strategy, tactics, that sort of thing. What I'm thinking about, what I'm choosing, what I'm looking at, how I define what I'm looking at, and how I cover up mistakes that I make and how I attempt to recover from those. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. So this immediately begins with, we salute, and then Ross is immediately aggressive. So he's immediately aggressive. He takes up more ring than he normally does. I notice that immediately, and I attempt to go for just like a naked attack here, which he parries very easily because, as you notice here, he is now in Guardia de Mista. He is in a fourth retracted, nice 90-degree angle here, and I noticed that my naked counter not only doesn't hit, or excuse me, naked attack doesn't hit, but it's very easily parried. Usually, my attacks up front like this aren't parried. They're usually just a little bit short, and he just moves out of the way. This time, he chooses to parry, and I'm immediately like, ah, crap. He has a strong guard. Nothing against Ross, he just usually doesn't have that strong of a guard, especially in parries, and so I was not expecting this. And you can see me standing up straight right now, kind of freaked out a little bit and not wondering what I'm going to do next. So we see what happens. I parry and kind of get like a weird action there. So I go up into like this weird first guard, retracted. Hold on, my computer is dumb, doesn't love me. Okay, so I almost get him here. I get off a bit of an over parry, but you see his structure is a little bit busted here, so the parry was easier. I over parry more than I needed to. Let's see. And here I return into this, I'm going to kill you if you try that again guard, which is what this is. So what this guard here is, especially at this range, first guard, or you could technically say because the cross guard that this is second, but anyway, this high guard like this is not the best in regards to defense, but it's really good at offense and only at close range. And the reason for that is it's got a lot of power coming down, so it's really good at offense. It's not good at defense because, as you can see, it leaves the rest of my body open. Now, a lot of the old masters say that this guard is the best guard when you have a dagger in your hand, because then you can guard this whole area and still threaten really high with a really strong attack. And you can fight closer than you normally do because you have that dagger. I don't have a dagger here, obviously. It looks like I'm holding one, but I don't have one. But I threaten this as, if you come any closer, I'll kill us both, essentially. This is like when you're driving down the road in your crappy vehicle in your shitbox and some nice Mercedes pulls out right in front of you and you think, you know what, I could just kill us both. I drive $1,000 car. I could kill us both. And you don't do it. But that's what you're threatening here. So just probing, probing. You see, I'm going back and forth. Now, what you'll notice about me is that I do micro disengages all the time. Uh, they're not for no reason, but you can see my sword just twirl, twirl, twirl. The reason I do that is because in fencing I have two major tells, and in rapier I add a third one. And my two major tells are I'm often foot first, and I am often sinking into my large, especially strong attacks. And we add a third one in rapier, I pump my arm, usually before a cut or a thrust. And so to cover that up, I move back and forth so you can't see my foot first. I move my sword around and micro disengages constantly so you can't see my arm pump, and I go up and down on my footwork so you can't tell if my up and down is prepping for an attack or if I'm just doing that just for fun. A criticism I often receive is I have a lot of unnecessary movement, and this is one of those moments when you have that yes and no. So like it's necessary because I have to hide my tells, but if I didn't have those tells, then I wouldn't have to do that, and then it is unnecessary movement. So it's a hard thing to explain to somebody who's looking at things from such a black and white objective lens of fencing. They're like, hey, you don't need to move that much. I'm like, yeah, you're right, but in the moment here, I need to cover up my tells, and that's what I need to do that. So it is both the wrong and the right answer simultaneously, and that's I know that's a weird way to think about things, but that is how I think about things. So we keep moving here, and I get surprised. I'm trying to probe here. I'm a little too close, and I get surprised by that shot to my arm. I miss my attack there, so you could argue that maybe this was a bit of a reckless attack on his part, but he was close enough that it was the right answer. I really should have been a little bit higher, or I should have attempted another false edge parry, but, we move on. Now here I am doing the same thing. Ross being aggressive again. He's already taken up a third of the ring, and I'm being a little bit more cautious this time. Same naked attack, and he parries it again, but it's not as strong this time, which means this time I'm not as worried. And you see, I go for that same naked attack on his way in, and I hit him with it. And I'm not sure he acknowledges it, so on my fade, I tag his arm again, just to make sure. Just as a personal note, I don't do this on purpose, but sometimes people don't acknowledge their hits immediately, and I'm thinking faster than. It's not that I'm thinking faster than them. I'm just worried about getting doubled or getting hit, so I'll often throw 2 or 3 attacks in succession, and sometimes they'll all land, and I feel like a bit of a bully, but it's not intentional. It's just kind of solidifying to myself and them that they have been hit and they need to acknowledge. So we go, there it is, and I tag him again there. So same thing. This time I noticed that because his guard is so much better, oftentimes I try to hit Ross on the outside line right here because he hangs out in this low third and he juts his elbow out, and so this part of his arm is always open. Because he's choosing this Mista guard right now in this low fourth, that target is no longer open, so I attempt to go for a naked counter, just a naked attack over top. Let's see if I can just a real slow. Actually, I'll do it the old man way because I don't know how to use hotkeys. I'll mute this so the music doesn't sound weird. But I go for that naked counter right there. I miss, and I get super lucky because he goes for the counter right. So, I go for a naked attack, and he goes for a counter as I'm doing it, and I get lucky and catch his tip right here on my bell. And then he disengages properly and thrusts in. I barely parry that. And then I kind of just reset a bit. Here I am doing my twirls again. Here he goes. He goes for a little beat attack there. I don't bite. He goes for again. And I go for a wacky transport. I technically missed that transport there. So what happens there is I do the correct motion, but I do it in such a way that I don't collect his sword at all. I literally just twirl around and then beat it sideways, and I get lucky with my left arm, catch his sword, and go for that attack there. So what that was a great example of is something that I've become very proficient at is clutching victory out of the jaws of defeat. Ross had me there. My transport did not work. However, I am so ready to lose all the time that I've gotten quite good at just doing my best to keep it on the move, just trying to run them out of steam at the last second so I can retake the initiative. And there at the last second, I push his sword out of the way with my left hand and then grab it, and I surprise him enough that I'm able to get off my own counterattack. And we move on, and you're going to see basically the same thing happens again. Here we are at distance. I don't let him eat up as much this time because I'm on guard sooner. Here he is, still in this Mista guard here, good right angle. He's going off with the false edge properly this time by cocking in his elbow. I see this, which is why I'm prepared, because I'm still kind of freaked out by him using this guard. I go for a high engagement. He goes back to that same spot I was. Now here we are in fighting range. Now he's super foot first here, which means you can see I'm already prepped to parry this. However, I do not parry the correct way. What I should have done is shot. Let's go back here. Gosh, my computer does not like hotkeys. What I should have done here is as he's coming in, I should have shot into fourth across my body and just made him run into that stop hit to his face. Instead, I attempt to go for that same transport. I actually get the transport this time, but he's already shooting in so far that he is able to just push right through it in the middle of my transport and hit me right in center mass, and I'm just like, oh, darn. So what really happened there is because I'm turning so much is he scraped the front of my stomach and it scraped all the way across with the tip of the sword. So not really a thrust, but a good enough cut, and if I were a judge I would have absolutely caught it, and that's why I'm like brushing myself there trying to explain what I thought happened. Alright, so we go back again. Here he is in this fourth guard again. I see it and I'm like, okay, here it is, but it's weak this time. And I'm wondering what's going to happen. He goes back to old Ross, which is why I'm creeping in. See, I'm hiding my tells. I go up and down, making sure that I can't. You can't see You can see I'm doing it now. So I'm both foot first, and I'm also pumping my arm, and I'm also sinking into my attack. All massive tells, but I try to hide those things with all of my movement. I get that same naked attack at the beginning there. Now, the reason I do things like this, the reason I go for constant naked attacks, uncovered attacks, and early attacks like that, either to the face or to the arm, is one, the face is something that everybody just has a natural inclination to protect themselves with. So even from out of distance, if they see something flying at their face, people move. Furthermore, if they believe that I can hit them in the arm before they can even get started, they begin to retract their arms as well, leaving that face even more open. What's important here for me is that I don't want my opponent to get started. So Ross very correctly stated to Charles E. Friday night that starting the bout is the wrong time to make the plan. You have to make your plan on your walk back after that bout is over. When that bout is over, you walk back to your spot and you make a plan for the next bout. If you begin to make your plan as we're fencing, you're too late. I've already done this. My whole goal here is to keep you distracted from coming up with any ideas by just constantly probing and harassing your body somewhere, your arm, your face, your legs, whatever it is, because I don't want you to have time to make a plan. And the second you make a mistake or the second I force an opening, I'm going for it, and I don't want you to have time to do that to me as well. So here we go. I've pushed him back a little bit here. He's still in that same guard. I see his foot first attack, and I go out for that hand parry there. I go to push it out of the air because it's a thrust, not a cut, and I have correctly utilized a rear-weighted position here to where I don't have to do much of a step. I pick my leg up, but you can see how my weight is all here on my back foot. And so we go, I push, and he eats that thrust in as we come inside. And I do a dramatic pose because that's what I do. Anyway, here we go. Fourth guard again, but he's turned it into a little bit of a third. I still don't like it. I don't like how strong it is side to side. I'm not used to Ross fighting in this way. I don't like how close he is, so I throw that little feint there. He pushes back, but he immediately redoubles. I kind of slap it out of the way a little bit, but I don't do anything with it. And here I am, rear-weighted again. I'm trying to gauge my distance here. I want Ross to think that he's farther away from me than he really is. I want to be close here because I love going for those naked attacks around. And here we go. I screw that timing up bad. He correctly comes in. I try to both like parry and attack at the same time. This is all bad. Like my knee's all twisted here. He hits me right here in the flank. I'm bending backwards. This is bad. This is awful. Don't ever do this. Don't ever copy me doing this. If you see this happen, you should laugh and point and call me names or something because this is really stupid. And I'm just like, and I'm in here like, oh dang, that was really stupid. I don't know what happened there. He just caught me, is what happened. He did what I did, which is go for those naked counters, naked attacks, and I hadn't formulated a plan yet, and he just caught me in the middle. So here we are. I don't want that to happen again. I'm hanging back. See how I bounce up and down like that just to keep you from seeing my movement. I'm doing it here. Always move my sword so you can't see my arm pumps. So there we go. So this is another one of those clutching victory out of the jaws of defeat. What's happening here is he goes for a super weak attack with foot first. I'm easily able to parry that with a beating parry. Keep it collected on my sword. You can see that, and I transfer it to my other hand. If you read any sword and buckler sources or some of the rapier and dagger sources, they talk about controlling the sword with your sword and then transferring the sword to your buckler or to your dagger so that you can then attack with your sword again, and that's exactly what I was doing here. This is an active movement. This is a thing that I train all the time, especially in solo drilling. I move my hands forward with my sword so that I can make this happen. Anybody who has fought me and been hand parried or grappled will notice that I do this sort of thing all the time. That's one of my favorite moves there, and I catch basically everybody with it at least once. It's just a surprise is what it is. And here I am moving in, just kind of I'm standing upright. Now we're back on guard. Ross is kind of in this third or fourth. He's not sure about it anymore, so here we go. We're about halfway through the video. I haven't shut down his fourth guard per se, but I haven't given him the success rate that he's hoping for, so Ross begins to change what he's doing enough that I can get him going back to what I'm used to Ross doing, which is what I want. I don't want to fight new Ross because I haven't figured out new Ross yet. I want to fight old Ross. And now that he's switching back to this third that he normally fights from, this low third, going back and forth, not confident with it anymore, I can tell like, here we go. So here we're back to the old stuff again. I sink. You see me bounce. I don't want you to see me sinking. Good hand parry. Good counter. It's all there. I think I call myself here because I kind of ate it on the wrist a little bit with that counter. So we'll talk about philosophy here for a second. Were I a tournament judge, I probably would not have called that if I was watching myself fight here. However, for the sake of class, it doesn't do anybody any good for you to call off your own hits and be like, I don't think that was very good. Or if you hit them and they don't acknowledge it, it doesn't do you any good to be like, oh, I got you, I got you. I mean, we're not trying to win anything here, right? Like the point here is that we are training ourselves to both be super, super critical of the hits that we make and super, super generous with the hits made against us. Because if we go to a tournament or a setting in which, your points are scored, you don't want to get stuck being disappointed both because your hits aren't being called and because they're calling more hits against you than you would in a normal way. So what you want is you want to get to this tournament and you want things to be called off that you would have called for yourself, and you want things to be called for you that you probably would have called off in class. So you're just in a constant state of pleasantly surprised instead of super disappointed in yourself in the whole tournament situation. It's good to train in such a way that everything that hits you is debilitating and everything that you do is probably crap. So what that does is it forces you to be really good at defense, and it forces you to be really good at offense, really objective with your offense and your defense. Anyway, just a little tidbit there. Here we are. I'm on guard a little bit late. Ross could have thrown himself at me and hit me there, but he chose not to. Uh, probably just didn't want to eat a double, which is probably what would have happened. So here he comes in, super duper foot first. I parry that somehow, and then I go for that counter right there. I think I missed. Nothing happens. Keep moving forward. I see he's making a super outside provocation. He's really wanting me to come in so he can make that beat attack. I know that's what he wants. I'm not going to do it. So I sink down again, wait for him to give up on that idea, and then I go for my own thing. Bam. Hit him right there. Or maybe I didn't. Anyway, and I definitely hit him there. That's the one that he called. I probably didn't hit that thrust, but he was waiting for that. But the thing is while he was in his provoking guard, that his idea would have worked perfectly. But because he backed up, he lowered his hand again, which was my time to go in. So the irony is I gave him exactly what he wanted. I just waited to do so after his trap had already kind of fallen apart. So he had given up on his strategy, probably subconsciously. This is a little too far forward. So he right here. Let's see, I'm also foot first here, but anyway. So you can see here, he's in a super wide guard. He wants me to come in like this so that he can push it out of the way and either cut me or he can stab through. And I don't want to do it, but here he goes. He lowers his sword and he's no longer provoking that same action. And so because I see that he's lowered his sword and he's not in that provoking guard anymore, or he's too far inward with it, I go for the attack here, and you can see he tried to push it through, but he was late. So he goes for his classic Mizani cut here from up high and then down low. So usually this is a good idea because a lot of people go up high and then straight back down. He goes up high and swings low. But you can tell I'm used to it. I do my hanging parry and fling my sword forward and get him on the fade. As he's trying to fade out, I hit him right. A super light cut to the chest there. Or to the shoulder or whatever. But anyway, what happened there was me knowing Ross and Ross knowing me. That's what makes this kind of interesting, is that against a stranger, I wouldn't have been able to make those same decisions. Ross wouldn't have been able to make those same decisions. This would have probably been a lot more simple of a match. Anyway, so here we go again. Here I am provoking, trying to get him to come in. I really want to counterattack him. I don't like any of my naked attacks anymore. They don't feel comfortable because of that guard, and I mess up bad. And he gets this like really good draw cut here on the back of my leg. So he caught me in a bad guard and he just pressed. I'm not used to Ross pressing, so when he began to press, I didn't take it seriously, and he pressed and hit me. So again, this comes from me knowing Ross. I know Ross doesn't like to be that aggressive, so when he was doing it, I just kind of assumed that it wasn't going to be very good, and then I got hit. So that's what happens. Here we go again. Move in, I'm doing the same thing, super foot first, pumping my arm, sinking down, but I'm trying to hide it. And it's a feint, and you can tell Ross is buying it, and he's about to go for that hard counter. And I catch his arm. Jeez. I don't know about that. So I catch something here, and I am able to, let's look at that real slow. So what happens here, let's do this frame by frame. is it was a feint, and he starts coming around. He is also super foot first. My hand goes out. I hit him, and I catch that blade with my hand like a fool. So that's probably a double. But mine went to the face. Super cool though. Looks cool. See, now the thing is if you watch that in real time, we come back. I say real time. Let's actually speed this up to normal. Oh, wrong one. Yeah, there we go. So you watch this in real time. It looks like clean mine, but you slow that down, you see that I actually ate that double to my hand. I don't think in the moment I felt that, actually. Usually my hits the hand, I wear such light gloves, I feel those. Might have been adrenaline, who knows. Anyway, moving on to the next bout here. Same exact thing. Foot first, pumping the arm, go forward, don't hit anything. But made him back up. Here we go, trying again. I just do it again, and he isn't ready for that. And I hit him again. So I may not have hit him with that first one. But you can see here, first I go for that. So I wait till his sword is up. So the problem here is that my strategy is solid. My strategy is solid. The timing is good. But my mechanics are bad enough that it causes this to fail. And also the distance wasn't right, and I didn't really commit to it. So here we go again. Pause. His sword goes up like it always does. He goes into these saber provocations like this. And I see those as it is my time to go. I go. I might hit that. It's it. But either or, this is a danger close parry. So something I train all the time is if my opponent is super late on their parry, they have to parry tip up like this. They parry tip up, and they have to parry with the very bottom of their strong somewhere here on my sword, and they have to over parry like that. That is a massive over parry. And as you can see, I'm already shooting my left side forward. Already shooting it. Now, he probably got that cut in. Because of the misdirection of force, it looked like it was flat, but I probably should have called it, and I go and stab him to death anyway. A tournament probably would have called that a double, or at least that would have been a late afterblow for me, and he would have got that point. Doesn't really matter. What's important here is that you can see what I train, the drills that I train through, how, not trying to toot my own horn here, but how quickly I transition from fencing to grappling. I go, an immediately shoot, and I just miss with my left hand. Had I actually grabbed his wrist, that would have been super clean. But that is what we train for. That exact thing right there. The timing on that was almost perfect. I just missed. So we can talk about analyzing a fencing bout for a second. When I was in high school, my physics teacher would give us homework that would be like an entire page worth of math. And if you got the wrong answer, he would go through all of your work, and he would take off points for every little mistake that you did. So it was still technically possible to make a passing grade even if you got the wrong answer, because what he was interested in really was your work. So if I'm looking at a fencing bout, let's say a singular bout, we look at this bout that happened. My timing was good, the idea was good, but at the last second I made a tiny little mistake that might have cost me the match. Oh well. Does that mean that the move didn't work? No, it doesn't. It means that I made a physical mistake that I could just train out, and that the proof of concept, you can see he was on the back pedal, he wasn't prepared, should have been my point, set for a little bit of a mistake. So we prove that there is a good concept here. It's a proof of concept. It's a good idea, and we don't want to give up on it just because it didn't work in that moment. We decided it didn't work because I made a mechanical error. Mechanical errors can be easily solved. Strategical errors are the ones that are hard to fix, and that's where you start making a decision of, okay, that's a bad strategical idea, so I'm going to that's just a bad strategy. I'm just not going to do that anymore. That's the stuff that you throw out. The mechanical failures are things that you can train out. But here in this moment, I did 99% of that correctly, and at the last second failed. So here we go again. Same provocations as always. Super foot first. Didn't really go for anything there. Was hoping to get his arm back, but I didn't capitalize on it. Really wanted to get him out of those guards. Anytime Ross picks a strong guard, I try to harass his arm, because I don't want to fight Ross while he's in a strong guard. I want him to retract, and I want him to start playing saber with me. When Ross starts playing saber with me, like this, here we go. This provocation here in second, very saber. Once he starts playing saber with me, my thrust game becomes way better than his can because he starts playing with these tip-up guards or these outside second guards that are fully extended. He has no more lunge except in his legs. He has no more range. So I know exactly what his range is now. And I can out-thrust Ross when he's thinking about cutting. Now, if he's thinking about thrusting too, it's about even. But if I can get him to start thinking about cutting, I can thrust, which is always much faster and much more efficient. So I got him in this weird provocation. He goes back to it. I see he was ready, and boom, right there. Good feint on my part. So I go forward, I go in that normal, so I've got him used to me going for those naked attacks. So I do all the things again. Foot first, pump my arm, sink down, go for it. He goes for that exact same parry as last time, goes for that parry and forth to the side to try and get me, and I don't go. He realizes I haven't gone, and he goes into the sideways tip guard to try and fade a cut sideways. So he goes into this weird second. This is a very Saber thing to do. He's going to cut here and try and cut me under my sword, but I know he's going to do that, so I shoot low, and I catch him right there on my Quillin and stop thrust that action. So what happened there is I remembered exactly what happened in the previous bout. I did the exact same stuff again, and I countered exactly what I knew that he was going to do. So this goes back to me knowing Ross, knowing what he's going to do. But if this was a stranger, and I noticed that the stranger fenced in such a way, then I can do the exact same thing, basically start the match the exact same way, and I can do the exact same move a second time, but with a slight change up, knowing that I'm going to catch them on their action, and that's exactly what I did here. That was all very intentional, very calculated. Next, he's being super aggressive again, taking up the ring. I don't like that. I don't like that at all, so I go for this counter. Don't get that really. He kind of hits me in the head there. This is all very dirty. I get caught up on myself. Miss that. Nothing happens. And that was all very stupid. All very bad. Let's move on from that. That was really sad. Here we go again. Same provocations, same ones, same naked. Notice it's not real. Go. All right, so right there, that was really, really proficient on my part. I go for that same thing. He misses, and I try to tag hit him in the middle of his cut there to try and get him to back up so he doesn't do it again. He doesn't want to do it again because he doesn't want to get tagged hit in the arm. Basically start over. Same provocations. Still creep forward my front foot like that. Still rear weighted, always rear weighted. Low guard, rear weighted. He goes for super foot first, but his arm is accelerating faster, so it doesn't matter. It's just a little bit out of range. He's going for that arm, which is the correct target, by the way. So this is a good idea. He's just failing a little bit mechanically. He notices that, and he goes back in the guard. Notice his feet are close together here. He's ready to come forward again, but then he spreads out his legs, and he is no longer ready to advance. He's already in a demi-lunge. He's going to retreat again. He's going to close his feet. He's going to bring his foot forward again and try to go. But while he's bringing his foot forward, notice I begin my attack. So the timing there on both of our parts was really good. So he brings his foot forward. I see that, and I go for my attack. I attack in the middle of his footwork, covering his sword. I go. He very, very danger close parries with this, what is essentially a hanging guard, this thrust that's going to his face. I see it's coming back. I'm tip up. I'm ready to receive this cut. I receive that cut with my own counter cut because I know in the past I have attempted to just a parry and what is essentially a frontale, and Ross is so good at wrapping through that I can't do that. So I beat his cut down, and here we go. We start over again. And I begin to provoke with my own cut. I moulinet hard here in the center. I've got Ross used to me moulineting and thrusting through, so you see he's ready to receive a thrust. It never comes. So he goes on the offensive again. Let's go back real quick. So he goes on the offensive again. He might have hit me there, actually. I can't tell. It may not have been good. Maybe he didn't. It might have been the impact of my Quillin. So you see I catch the Quillin here on his sword, and I go for my own counter cut under. There is that cross cut again. He's like, oh crap, I've been blown out of the way. He's trying to get away, and he's trying to fade back through with his own cut down. I cut down. So the reason I choose to go for this Satani is because I know I can immediately cover upwards up here where that cut's going to be, and that's what I do. So that was actually super proficient. Super calculated in that moment. So here we go. Parry, swipe, cut through, cut up, and catch. Again, these motions are things that I solo drill all the time. I solo drill these actions all the time. My cuts up, my cuts down. Now, here's the problem. Solo drilling does not fix or help your timing and your strategy. All it fixes is your mechanics. Timing and strategy is something that you have to figure out during sparring or during really like focus drilling. Focus drilling meaning that you're almost sparring, but your coach is like feeding you stimuli so that you can learn how to use your strategy and your well, basically just learn how to use your strategy and learn how to use your timing. Those things you just get by doing it. Now, but the mechanical stuff, the reason that I can pull off really good cuts that way is because I solo train. I solo train all the time, hit bob dummies, and I twirl around in my backyard, so on and so forth. So, but if you have good timing and distance in addition to good mechanics, that's a super tough nut to crack. And I can get away with a lot of bad mechanics on the forefront here because when it matters in the moment, in the middle of the bout, my mechanics stay pretty good while a lot of other people's, I'm circling Ross, I'm sorry, while other people's oftentimes begin to fall apart. So if mine are like 6 out of 10, they never drop below that, whereas even someone with a 10 out of 10 mechanics at the beginning, if they get pressed or they start adrenaline dumping, their mechanics drop to 2 out of 10 out of panic, whereas mine stay at that 6 out of 10, and now I've overmatched them with my mid-tier fencing because they're in panic mode and I'm not. That is the strategy of Charles Turner. Here we go. Exact same provocation again. I think we start every bout exactly the same. Ross is pressing. Don't like it. Yeah, and I try to blast through, but he cuts me on the way in, and I just give up because that was 100% his bout. Let's move through. Whoopsie, too far. Too far. And we're in slow motion again. So here we go. Ross is doing his twirly. He does the exact same thing. He doesn't want me to know where he's coming from. Doesn't capitalize on it. That see his foot goes back immediately forward. He's going to attack. But then he spreads his feet out again. He's not ready. Toe up. Retreats. He's ready. Super ready. Foot forward. But as his foot moves forward is when I begin my attack, which is why that succeeded. So what I'm doing here is I'm waiting. I'm looking at Ross's provoking footwork. I know what all this footwork means from him, and I wait until he's flat-footed and he's got his feet off the ground before I begin my attack. And so the reason that most of these are successful is less my mechanics and more my timing and distance and my strategy waiting for him to make that mistake. And that was the end of that bout. So I realized that I'm not as proficient at talking about talking about the theory of fencing like Michael is. Michael's looking at stuff like body and structure. I can see those things pretty well too. I'm just not good at articulating it. It's just a matter of we're here to talk about what I'm looking at, why I decided to do what I did. I made quite a lot of mistakes here, but I have become proficient at clutching victory out of the jaws of defeat, just grasping it out of there, just pulling it right out of its mouth, because I can stay pretty all right throughout the whole thing. Very, very rarely does my structure fail to the point that I just fall apart, and that just comes from a I'm not really sure what it comes from. It's something that's always been natural to me to be able to stay calm in moments like that, never panic, never get upset, never get mad, never get too greedy with anything like that. Try not to adrenaline dump in the middle of the match. And it comes with its pros and cons. One of the biggest pros is that I don't fall apart under pressure like that, but one of the biggest cons is it keeps me from being super aggressive. There are times when I need to be really aggressive and I just don't, because I don't want to overplay my hand emotionally, because aggression requires a lot of lion-esque emotions. It requires a lot of I don't know how to explain this. It just requires a lot of like emotional outbursts that I'm not comfortable giving, so I just don't do that thing. I can be aggressive with my fencing, but it's all very controlled. It's never just like flying at people or anything like that. Though I have done that for fun before, it's always in good fun and it's never in true aggression. So those are my thoughts. We'll see if anybody cares to listen. Is it done? Nope. I just don't know what I'm doing.